Thanks, Michael. Hey, Tyler. Good to see you. Thanks for doing this. I know you're not looking past Thursday's game, but I'm going to ask you to anyway. You know the formula: win at home, pick up points where you can on the road. The fact that you drop points at home against Canada, how much, if at all, does that make you, you know, want to get something out of that game or need to get something out of that game in addition to taking care of business against El Salvador and Honduras? Thank you.
Yeah, as always, the mentality coming into camp is obviously the game by game mentality, right? You can't look too far forward because you know that almost ultimately becomes a distraction to the games that you have coming up. But, we know that Canada coming into this camp is obviously a super important game. Going to Canada, like you said, we would have liked to get 3 points. When we played them at home. But now we look to improve on that performance. We're going to watch and cut a lot of video from our games, but we know that they have a strong team. But we look forward to going up there and obviously trying to get 3 points.
Next will be Paul Tenorio from The Athletic.
Hey Tyler, these are the first three opponents faced in qualifying. Obviously, it'll be a much different situation in that you were on the road, or in Honduras and home against Canada. I wonder, when you look back at those games, how much can you use them to prepare for facing these opponents a second time, or do you kind of have to scrap it because you figure El Salvador and Honduras are going to play you much differently at home, or now being on the road than they did at home in September? Thanks so much.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you play teams multiple times in any competition, right, the key is obviously adapting on what you didn't do well in the first time around, and obviously looking to improve. And we're gonna watch some of the video, I'm sure, of what we need to do against El Salvador. We're gonna break them down. But one thing that the coaching staff does really well is they put a game plan in place that's ultimately gonna give us the best chance to succeed. So going into this first game against El Salvador, the conditions when we played down there are going to be a lot different now. When we have a great fan base here in Columbus, and we look forward to having them behind us and giving us that extra support and energy. But we know that they're going to be three important games nonetheless.
We'll go to Ron Blum from the Associated Press.
How did you, Tyler, find training this morning? And we're using thermals, gloves, and that. And how does cold change the game and the way you play, if anything?
Yeah, it's obviously cold out here, but something that I've been used to. Growing up in New York and playing academy games throughout the winter on turf fields. You're used to this. Pushing the snow to the side and being able to play and enjoy it. The cold is not going to stop us from doing what we do. If anything, it's just going to cause us to run a little bit more to stay warm.
Next will be Grant Wall.
Hey, Tyler, it's good to see you. I wanted to ask about sort of your last month at club level and going through a coaching change where a coach in Jesse, who you knew really well for a long time, was no longer there, and a new coach coming in. Was there ever a point when you were concerned about whether you'd be getting enough time on the field under the new coach to be totally ready for this round of qualifiers? And how have you gone through this process of getting time on the field recently?
Yeah. Whenever you go through a coaching change, it's always going to be, an adaptation period, him finding the players that, he trusts the most, ones that are performing. When a coach comes in, maybe you're in form, maybe you're not in form. It's ultimately up to the player to decide that. But, I've created a very good relationship with Domenico Tedesco when he came to the club. And, he told me that he trusts me. And, I came off the bench, I think, 3 times before the break, but been able to play every single game since the break now. So, I'm feeling good, feeling in form, feeling confident. But no, I was never in doubt. Every single time we've had a coaching change, I've been able to figure it out and find time on the field. And, I trust in my ability. So at the end of the day, it's just up to me to perform and show the coach.
We'll go to Jeff Carlisle from ESPN FC.
Thanks, Michael. Hey, Tyler. It seems like you and Eunice and Wes have gelled together really well in that midfield. And obviously, you and Wes have a history. But how has that process been? How was it that you were able to kind of complement each other so well? Because it doesn't always work out that way, but in this case it has.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question. I think that from the first time we just met each other off the fields, all of our personalities just gelled well together. And I always find that people that you get along with well off the field, you always find a certain type of chemistry on the field. And for me, when I look at the types of players that we are, we're all very different players in a certain sense. Weston is a very box to box midfielder. Eunice a little bit more, but he can do a lot of things in the attacking half of the field as well. And I'm just a little bit of a more defensive minded midfield. So when you look at the qualities of each of us, I think that it really does balance each other out very well.
Next will be Daniel Nora from Univision.
Hi, Tyler. How are you? Thank you for doing this.
Mm-hmm.
In the whole process of the qualifiers, you have been the captain of the team. How can you describe that responsibility, not only in the field, but off the field? And how do you think that had helped you in being a better player in the national team?
Yeah, it's absolutely. It's a huge responsibility. I mean, I think that as a young player, I can say that I'm not someone that knows everything. I'm learning on the job every single day, and there's a lot that I have to work on myself as a person and a player to improve. But with the help of my teammates, it's a huge responsibility for all of us. I want to be a leader that guys can come to. A lot of young guys that we have making their debuts or coming into camp and feeling like they're needed and they're wanted around this group. And I think that we've created an amazing atmosphere. So for me, it's a huge honor to lead the team out whenever I get the opportunity to. One that I've spoken to with Greg on multiple occasions about what he wants, what he needs from a leader and a captain. But we have a lot of leaders on this team, and they help me every single game going into this.
Next will be Jacob Myers from the Columbus Dispatch.
Hey Tyler, thanks for doing this. I'm just curious, after such a long break and given what this window can do for you all in terms of setting up for that final window, how much will this kind of be a measuring point for you all to see how much this group has grown, and I guess how much do you feel like it has grown as well?
Yeah, it will be another huge test for us, I think. When you look at, what this group has done now, a lot of MLS guys, sacrificing time or not really getting a break since our last window. They've had to go into a December camp and play against Bosnia. Then they had to go to Phoenix and play in another camp to maintain that fitness and come in to be prepared while the European guys are still playing games. There's a lot of things that, the coaching staff and U.S. Soccer has had to manage in order to get the best group of guys together. So I think that coming into this camp, you're going to see guys that, have obviously still been playing games, but guys that are going to need to play major roles in order to help us reach our goal of qualifying.
We'll go to Jerry Zagota from the Star Tribune.
Hi, Tyler. What are your recollections of the worst conditions you ever played in? And if you had to choose, would you rather play in heavy snow or really frigid, like it could be single digits air temperatures here in Minneapolis?
Yeah. Playing in New York, I've played in a lot of conditions, that weren't great. I've definitely played in snow before. I've played in Colorado in a snowy game when you couldn't see where out of bounds was on the field and using an orange ball. So, I've definitely played in some definitely tough conditions. But, for me, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. The cold is the cold. In Germany, it's cold, not quite as cold as here yet, but it's getting there. So, we're used to it.
So far, and fingers crossed, weather forecasts for Minnesota do not involve heavy snow. So we're hoping it stays that way. Next, we'll go to Ivis Galarcep from SBI Soccer.
Tyler, thanks for the time. Good seeing you. First part, Domenico Tedesco is someone that Weston obviously knows very well. How much did it help kind of being able to pick his brain on Tedesco as a manager, and what was Weston's kind of biggest piece of advice for you on playing for Tedesco? And as far as this window goes, Greg mentioned that their players could play 3 games, well, could start in all 3 games. It could be those situations. You're someone who did that, has done that before. What kind of challenges does that present? Playing 3 qualifiers in a row like that, how is that different from 3 club games?
Yeah, so starting with the games, usually when you play 3 club games in like a Europe English week, we call them. I want to say you mostly have 3 days in between before each game. In the qualifying cycle, you have 2 days. So that extra day does make a huge difference. Now on that third day where you're getting recovery and usually preparing for the day before the game, it's then the match day. So it does make a huge difference. And, for me, I've obviously, I did that in the first window of the cycle so far. And, I have no problem doing that again. It's a huge opportunity whenever you can play in 3 games and contribute to the team. So for me, it's really important to be able to do that. And I know we're going to need a lot of players to be able to do that. As far as Tedesco goes, as soon as he got hired, I did text Wes, and Wes responded to me right away and was just like, he's a great manager, has a lot of brilliant ideas. He thinks that he's going to be really successful with Leipzig, and for me, he just told me continue to do what I do, and obviously trust in my ability, because he'll want players like me, which was important. It's good to hear from Wes, obviously.
We'll go to Charles Bone from MLSsoccer.com.
Hi, Tyler. Yesterday, Anthony talked about the confidence that he feels and that he has in the group, and I wonder how you handle the balance between, I guess, confidence and humility, because you talked about getting maximum points from the first window, and ever since then it seems like it's been one game at a time, and I know you want to have that mindset, but also at what point do you guys kind of step up and sort of state who you want to be, and that you want to expect to take full points in every game, and that you have those kind of high aspirations for the group?
I mean, I would tell you right away, I don't ever go into a game and say I want to tie or not get maximum points for me. And the whole point of playing and competing is you want to win and get 3 points. So, of course, but, when you start to look too far ahead, and I'm already thinking about playing in a game against Canada that's overlooking a good opponent in El Salvador, where we went to El Salvador and drew. So I don't want to have the mindset of looking too far ahead and creating a distraction for myself. I want to stay focused on exactly what's in front of me and what the aim and the target is. But, exactly like Anthony said, we have great confidence in our group when we're playing at a high level, and we're all focused on that one goal and what we need to do, and not looking too far ahead is when we've always achieved our best results.
Next will be Michael DeCourcy from Sporting News.
Yes, Tyler, I wanted to ask you about, you was mentioned earlier about the chemistry you have with Eunice and Weston. If there is player rotation in the midfield, and it seems likely, how do you maintain that, and how much do you hope that the 3 of you can be out on the field together for these 3 games?
Yeah, it's obviously, it comes down to how everyone's feeling and how we come out of each of these games. They're obviously not easy games. It's going to really require a lot of energy, a lot of focus, both mentally and physically. But we do know at the end of the day, if we do need to rotate players, we have so many amazing players that we can put into position. But yeah, like you said, when the 3 of us are out on the field, we feel like we have a strong chemistry and we're able to dominate games, and that's important, obviously.
Next will be Brian Sciaretta from American Soccer Now.
I know this kind of piggybacks on that, but specifically the form that Weston and Eunice are coming into this camp is particularly high. I think it's probably as high as, Greg Berhalter said as the roster was announced, Weston's in the form of his life. Discuss the expectations that you have specifically because of that form, and whether you believe you guys are in a position to play better than even normal based on that. Thanks.
Yeah, right now Weston is scoring goals for fun, so I'm gonna hold him to it and put a little bit of extra pressure on him that he needs to score some goals now. So every time we get a set piece and there's a good delivery, I'm thinking that he's gonna score. And as far as Eunice, obviously he's had a great performance in a big game for his club, and to see him playing regularly now at Valencia is super important as well. So yeah, like you said, I think form coming into competitions like this is always super important, because you come in with this confidence and a little bit of swagger, and you help dictate games at the end of the day. And being a young team, I think it's important that all of our players have confidence.